Feroz Khan. Thank you so much for joining us.
So I'm very hands-on to different technology sections. So what I'll do is this: I'll try to demystify the digital transformation, because we are talking about a lot about the digital stuff. And what we do is this: we generally use this word digital very loosely, and there's a lot of difference between a digital and digitization. What we tend to do is this: we talk about digitization, but then we think about digital. These are two different things. So let me spend some time that how do we really demystify the digital. So when you find out, when you adopt these methodologies, you specifically get into a digital transformation art of possible, like what all things are there which is possible and can be done. Now there are 3 steps. So if you find out that what is the art of possible, there are 3 steps towards the approach. The approach step, if you see, is how do you really innovate, how do you incubate, and how do you commercialize. Means when I say digital transformation, what is the innovation which I am bringing? And when I am talking about innovation, how do you really incubate that? Because most of the digital transformation or most of the digital layer, they fail only because they do not get incubated. Now, we keep on talking about P's and equities and venture capitalists funding in the money, but see the number of failures. Not everyone succeeds. There are so many startups which happen, specifically in fintech if you talk about. So many startups. 90% it fails. Why? Because we do not think about the incubation. We think only about the innovation. So you have to think in a cycle wherein you innovate, you incubate, and then you commercialize. So this is the very 3 important message which I want to give, that when you think about any, be it fintech or be it medtech or any technology you talk about, you have to think about these 3 aspects in order to make sure that you transform. Okay. Now, there's a very important graph which I want to show, and this is basically what I'm telling is this: there's a correlation between your innovation and incubation, and this correlations I'll help you to understand in the form of the graph. If you see this 2x2 matrix, what it tells is this: there's a recent patent activity, means the IPRs which you build on the x-axis, and y-axis which tells that what is it which you are going in terms of the integrity or in terms of the investment which you bring to that. Now, in this also the categorization is, let's say your research or innovation, it is very low in the scale, and even the investment also which you are doing is very low, then you fall under the category of an infant, which means any startup you are talking about, you have very little innovation and then you have very little incubation also. Then you are considered as one of the sort of an infant. But there can be a proportion wherein the innovation is low, but at least the incubation side is high. So when the incubation side is high, that time I can categorize that as a graduates, like at least there is a fair degree of success ratio which is there. The third is this, that my innovation cycle, that's very high, but my incubation cycle is sort of a low. Then I call that as a green shoot. That yes, it may shoot out because my ideas are very well, I want to do good, but incubation is something which is little, which can still be managed. The last cycle which we call it as a high tide is this: you have a good innovation cycle and you have a good incubation also. That is a pure play success story. So whenever we talk about transformation, whenever you talk about startups and all, you have to think about whether we lie into which axis of this 2x2, whether it is high tide or whether it is green shoots, where do we lie?
Here is information from...
Now, if you see this innovation and incubation, this gives birth to a new era or an emerging technology which is an intelligent automation. This is different from artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is one of the component of this, and that I will explain. So basically, if you see this intelligent automation, what happens is this: we try to help you explain by 3 steps approach. So first, let's demystify the intelligent automation, then deconstruct that, followed by develop the intelligent automation. So can you go on to the next slide? This slide, if you talk about, this is basically we have to see what is under the hood of the intelligent automation. See, one of the component of an intelligent automation is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, all AI is not IA, which means all artificial intelligence are not intelligent automation. Now, this is one of the very important component, because when we say artificial intelligence, it's basically what rules and algorithms can I write so that there's a decisioning which can be taken. See, this is not a new concept. AI is not a new concept in India. we talk about digitization, but then we plug that with AI. That's the wrong thing. So AI, if you talk about, if I give you one example, let's take an example of Ford Motors. Ford Motor is 109 years old company. It does a top line of $60 billion. It has a employee base of 200,000 employees. It has sold almost 2 million cars last year. Now you compare this with Uber. Uber is only 8 years old company. It is valuated at $65 billion. It has only 10,000 employees and it has 0 cars. Why? Same AI. So see the power of the technology, that you use this technology and you will leapfrog to a different level. So AI is important as a technology part, and that we have to see from this angle. Then the power of the data engineering. Like you talk about any AI, if you don't have the underlying data, garbage in is garbage out. You're not going to get anything else. So data engineering plays an important role over here, and does the robotics process automation. Why? Because when we do automation, we unearth lot of hidden facts. So these are the 3 very important parts of the intelligent automation. Second, if I talk about the deconstruction part, if I deconstruct it, let's see from the attractive market size. Now this market size when I am talking about is basically the emerging, estimated market size. So there is almost an estimate of $1 trillion potential addressable demand for the IA. $1 trillion. If you talk about India, GDP, India's GDP is close to $2.5 trillion. Okay. If you talk about US GDP, that's close to almost $16 trillion. So here we are talking about that using AI, the potential is almost as close to a GDP of India, which is half a point basis of the GDP of India. So $1 trillion is the potential impact. Now, if you talk about the revenue pool size of it, almost $2 billion is the revenue pool which can be pulled into the IA numbers. And if you talk about the projected revenue for 2022, basis some numbers and some estimation, it's almost $7 to $9 billion which would be projected as compared to that of the revenue pool. Now, if you see this graph, what exactly it talks about? It talks about the same intelligent automation by different industry vertical. So industry vertical means, like if you see healthcare and life science, the competitive advantage or the competitive intensity of this industry vertical may be low. It's not very high. But if you see the share of the intelligent automation, that's sort of a decent. Here, the fact which I want to bring is this. Just see the BFS, banking and financial services. Banking and financial services, the intensity of the adoption is very high, which is almost 15% plus. But if you see the share of the IA market, that's also 17 to 20%, which means that at least the banking and financial services, they have started using intelligent automation, they have started using AI. And clear-cut example is, you talk about lending system, be it retail lending or be it your SME lending. 5 years back, when you used to go to take a personal loan or a home loan, it used to take 30 days time cycle, and even that was not sure whether you will get it. Today, if you go and ask for a personal loan or if you go and ask for a home loan, maybe in 4 days or 3 days all process gets completed. If KYC norm would not have been there, state through processing personal loan up till 60,000 can be done in 2 minutes. Okay, how it happens? It happens only due to the penetration of this. Okay, so that's the messaging which is coming out, and there are some industry vertical which are the laggards, but banking, insurance, they are the leapfrogging into this. Now the third part, which is the important part, is this: how do we really develop that particular capability? Now developing that capability is this: we can think about the short-term metrics. Short-term metrics is this: yes, we bring in some robotics or some RPS tools, and then within 6 months we can do that. But then the long-term, when we talk about, is basically the human-centric design or the human design, which primarily we talk about the cognitive computing. So cognitive is this: maybe we develop AI or develop intelligent automation. It will take almost 5 years time to come to a cognitive world. Cognitive means by 5 years you will develop so much data, you will have so much data that the computers will start behaving like a human brain. Okay, because it needs data. So in order to have a right algorithm, in order to have a right machine classes written onto this, you need data. So by which you will get, by 5 years you will get that, and it acts like a human brain, which you call it as a cognitive end of this. And this is important to understand. Important slide. This is basically what it tells that if you see intelligent automation in last 10 years, there's a significant paradigm shift which has happened. And paradigm shift which has happened why? Because if you see the cost of sensors, it has come down by 50x. IP address, if we go on to IPv6 and IPv8, 10 to the power 3380 is the IP address availability, which means there's a lot of scope for AI and ML over there. Cost of bandwidth network, that has come down 40x. If you talk about the cloud computing, its agility and the nimbleness which is there, that is 20x which has increased. Processing power, the compute power, 50x it has increased. So net, these are the good indications which you see in last couple of years, which has brought IEM, which has brought AI very close to the win-win situation. I think how to run a digital transformation, that in interest of time I'll skip this session, and I'm open for any questions which
has to be follow like a flow chart because it is predefined.
No, it has a framework. So it's not a flow chart, I'll say. It has a framework. Now the framework would be, then in order to be enabled for an intelligent automation, the framework is this. First, how do I digitize my core? My core has to be digitized. My system has to be digitized so that it talks to different ecosystem. Then the second framework is this. How do we talk about the new growth potential? New growth potential is this, whether it is customer, whether it is product, whether it is services, how do we bring that as a part of this ecosystem? And the two other frameworks important component is all about your analytics and enablement. So the operating model, how do you really enable that? How do you bring the data? How do you visualize the data? So this framework has to be followed for this. So instead of a flowchart, I'll say it's more of a framework.
Feroz, do you work with your Indian clients as well? Or
Yes.
So what is your perspective here? Because what we have observed here is that most of the clients, they are still grappling with the issue of data itself, wherein they either don't have the data at one place, they don't know what to do, it's not structured in a particular format, and then that it basically the step one itself is not clear.
So that's the fact of the matter that I work for a lot of Indian clients. I work for PSUs and non-PSUs also. See, India, some industry verticals have have done. So like FS has really done well into this. But if you talk about the industrial goods, which is the auto OEMs and all, they are gearing into this. So they have embarked onto a journey. So everyone is not thinking about the EVs, everyone is thinking about the autonomous car, everyone is thinking about the telematics and all. So they are the early movers, they are thinking about this, but still they have not graduated to that place. And it will take some time. And primarily the reason is this, the data is the missing gap.
Yes.
So you bring in any technology, if you don't have the underlying data, because still I'll say, see, big data is no more a hype. It's the reality. It's the reality. And it's nothing, it's not a rocket science engineering, it's primarily what we are telling is this, it's a repository wherein we have unstructured data on which we do a streaming and then the decision which is done. So that as a building block that has been already been generated, but it will take time to leapfrog to this level as compared to that of the FS. So India, FS is doing good. In FS also, the private sector, the private banks and NBFC, they are doing good. The PSUs are embarking onto that journey, followed by the other industries.
IPv4 and IPv6.
So IPv6 is something which will be why, because the number of sensors and the number of the, see, this works onto a DHIP protocol, which is a dynamic host. It's not a static host. Dynamic host IP keeps on changing. Now, the moment you do a federation of the services or the web service or the API calls, the IP changes. So that's the reason I always recommend to move on to IPv6, because the quantum which you get over there, the breadth which you get in the subnet, that's very high as compared to that of the IPv4.
One is that ultimately capturing the data is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
But we also have to move from capturing the data by intention to capture the data which is already being generated. For instance, if for any project, today practically every person is having a phone. the data is being generated and AI is now able to process unstructured data. So if we can pull that data into our database, and if our data capturing is more based on sourcing, then we'll move faster. The second point I wanted to ask you is that there's a lot of talk about Google, Apple and others coming out with platforms where you can deploy AI much easier. How do you see that transformation helping a common man to move to adoption?
So first thing is this, you rightly said data capturing. See, generation of data and capturing of data is two different things. Now, if I take an example of FS as a vertical, there's a host of data which gets generated, whether through web camera, whether through ATM, whether through your social and all. And question is it that the regulators allow you to utilize that data? Answer is no. There is a limitation. Whenever there is an insider policy which comes out, so regulator does not allow you. If suppose you are a telecom company and you have started a payments bank, it's not like that you will use the telecom data to payments bank. If you are an insurance company and doing a AMC like asset management, it's not like that asset management data can be used over there. So that's a regulation side of it. Now technology side of it, yes, there are technologies like IP profiling, there are technologies like web extraction and all, wherein I can pull that data. I can do a host ID based mapping, I can do a geofencing based mapping, I can do a geolocation based mapping. So there are various ways I can, you can do that. That's something which is very clear. And I think it will take time in terms of the regulators to understand this and answer to that.
Different business segment. Which business segment do you see the maximum opportunities, and which business segment you think that they are actually laggard?
Okay.
That's one.
Okay.
So in terms of the opportunities in different business segments, and also the second question is related to that. What are the skill gaps that you think with regard to those specific segments?
Okay.
This I'm asking also to help the academicians who are sitting here and looking to help their students or help their boys meet those skills.
Let me tell you this thing, I think you also will not know. I'm a visiting faculty at IIT Delhi and MDI. So I'm an author of multiple books, I've written so many books and some of my books goes into academics also. So I keep on hearing this question from my students. In fact, from here
I'm also one of them.
Okay, so I'm going to MDI only from here, so that's the reason I'm leaving. So this I keep on hearing this question. It's not like in terms of the segment or in terms of the business units which are laggards and which are doing well. So clear cut in global wise, if you see, insurance and banking are really doing good, followed by telcos of the world. Now laggards, if you talk about the laggards who are there, obviously the industrial good and PSUs, the governments and all, they have been the laggards. So it was good that there were a lot of government people and a lot of bureaucrats sitting over there. I intentionally I was not telling, because see, when I was hearing Mr. Qureshi talk about in a sense he was hinting about AI, but actually he was talking about digitization, which is the very basic of the the digital and AI. AI is a different leap altogether, and here we are talking about crime record getting digitized and this and that. That's our land record getting. That's a very so point which I am making is this PSUs are purely a laggards. However, I have seen a paradigm shift in the auto AEMs, which comes under the industrial good manufacturing segments. So they have they have moved on to a next era of journey, whereas they are investing a lot in terms of innovations for AI, ML and IoTs. And there's a reason behind it. The reason is this: if you know Google is spending billions and billions of dollars on Waymo, which is a self-driving car. If you do Tesla is doing everything possible to spend onto how do we create an autonomous vehicle. So that's the reason the auto companies, they have at least started this journey.
So just to add on to this, just one question here. When you talk about auto OEMs, is it the Indian ones or is it the global ones? Because let's say for example there is a cluster of Japanese OEM who comes around, who
see, Indians have already started this thing. So if I give some examples, if you talk about like Nissan has already collaborated with JV with Renault. Okay, so Nissan Renault is doing a lot, and the clear-cut example is this year or next year you will see a lot of EVs coming into market, and EVs are nothing. It's even, I'll say it's a connected car or connected device also. So Indians have also started it. they have started onto this journey. Companies like Maruti is also embarking onto this journey. They
Well,
are
I
thinking
would put them
about.
as a laggards.
Okay, so they have started this. They have started this. So obviously they have not matured to this level for sure. But at least they have started that thought process. That's clearly a great point.
Okay, logistics I was being
Yeah.
Where do you see logistics?
See, there's a lot of investment which is going to come in logistics, and if you see the way the infrastructure is getting developed, infrastructure will lead a way towards the logistics setup. So at least the logistics part, I'll say today they are laggards. Specifically India context, they are laggards. But there also they have thought the importance about that, because infrastructure, the rail network, the road network, the shipping network, all those things, there's a lot of investment which is going on to that side. So I see that 2022 or 2022 there would be a paradigm shift.
And the skill gap?
So skill gap is an important thing. See, skill gap is important. Why? Because that's what I initiated with, that we do not have a common understanding of the loosely used word digital or AI, so we use this in a different context, and that happens only due to skill gap. So we are not educated enough to understand that what is the rationale behind that. So it's like we try to solve a wrong problem with a wrong offerings which is there, which is a fact of the matter. Why this happens? This happens due to the so-called hype. I was asking one of my students, he said that there's one requirement wherein some automation has to be done, and can I use blockchain? I said, what is the use case of bringing a blockchain? Just for the jazz are you bringing in? Because people think about that cryptocurrency and embed that into each and everything. My point of view is this is due to the skill gap, because if you know what is the use case, you can apply the logic as per the use case, not as per the hype which is there. So skill gap is definitely there. Specifically India, I know that this is there, and at least these studies have not started emerging up. So there's a lot of case studies which are there, which have been found.
Actually, I can just add to this. Nobody we have done a survey specifically, or finding is that a lot of people are still at the hype stage. Decision makers are not knowing what is the impact case for adopting. So the approach which is necessary is that we set up awareness centers first, where we show the use cases and show the ROIs, and let people experience, then they would move much faster. Otherwise, a lot of people are just talking about it, they've been talking about it for the last 3 years.
I hope that academics sitting here, they benefit from your input.
And last one point which I'll add to this is this: see, more than skill gap, I see this as a gap of a change management. Are people ready to adopt to that change? Here the fundas are that you bring in a technology and then you force the people to use it. We have to bring that change as a culture.
So we need to bring that use case first.
Exactly. So that's what the missing gap is.
Yeah. Now we remember we talked about digitization a couple of years ago, right? So despite demonetization being pushed on us, we are back to more cash in the economy today than we had a couple of years ago. So thank you very much, Mr. Feroz Khan Sahab. It was a very enlightening presentation, very energetic and very thought-provoking as well. We hope to continue benefiting from you, and especially the academicians sitting here, and I hope that you are able to contribute to their college as well. Thanks a lot.